No, you don't need the.
I'm doing this my way.
He a legend, he a legend, he a legend. He a legend, he a legend, he a legend.
Talking on it though, then
He a
you can't
legend.
it up later.
Welcome to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league of items. Welcome to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league of items.
Pike on money, Pike on money.
What's up, everybody? It's Pikel with League of Items. This is getting annoying to make videos of this nature. It's just getting frustrating at this point. And why is it frustrating? It's not frustrating because of the trolls. It's frustrating because, you know, we've been talking about evil geniuses having drafting problems for months. So I want to go over their draft from today's game, and it's not like, oh, you know, every single thing they did in this draft was horrible and they never had a chance to win, because they did have a chance to win this game. But let's just go through what I was kind of thinking about the draft. So first, you know, and I'm not trying to take anything away from G2. G2 is playing very well right now. They have a better read on the meta, and they're kind of dictating how their drafts go. And EG is playing right into their hands, drafting the way that they do. The announcers were voicing their frustrations as well. I don't know, you know, what their reasoning is behind it, but I'm going to give my reasoning behind it. So first up, not banning Wukong, all right? Wukong has been a very powerful champion this entire tournament, has been buffed a bunch of times, and is just a strong, flexible champion. So even if you don't think that Wukong is like a game-breaking champion, the rest of your team composition is now going to have to deal with the Wukong. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So that's the first thing that I would kind of question. The other thing that I would question is, if you think Ezreal is that good and is the best champion possible, then you should be banning out Kai'Sa and I guess the Kalista as well, because those are the two champions that if you're going to blind Ezreal, the other team is going to lock it in, right? So we go Wukong into Ezreal Lee Sin. My problem with going Ezreal Lee Sin is that Lee Sin is a jungler who wants to do things in the early game, and Ezreal doesn't necessarily want to do stuff in the early game. Like, yes, he can fight during the laning phase, but it's not his like best attribute. He's like a shifty champion, no pun intended, and can be somewhat self-sufficient, especially if Vulcan is roaming, but that's not a reason to blind pick a champion. Like, you don't need to pick that first rotation red side. Like, what's G2 going to do? Ban out 5 80 carries, and then Danny has 5 other 80 carries that he can play? That's just annoying for me to start. Because Wukong against Ezreal, like, yes, Ezreal is mobile. Wukong is also very mobile, and I'm not trying to say that Wukong is a counter to Ezreal or anything, but even in the best case scenarios where your Ezreal is ahead of a Wukong, he always has the option to engage on you and make your life difficult. So that's the first thing I'm frustrated about, is that Ezreal and Lee Sin don't really synergize great together, and you know what the comeback is going to be. They're going to take Kai'Sa and something else. So they go with Kai'Sa into Ezreal. Why is this good? Because even though the Ezreal is shifty, Kai'Sa plays as an assassin. Is that a reliable way to play League of Legends? No. But is it a very strong way to play League of Legends right now? Yes. And against a champion like Lee Sin, it's also pretty good because you can assassinate the Lee Sin. He is hyper mobile, but you can assassinate him as Kai'Sa, even if it's like an even game. Then Caps is on LeBlanc. So this is even more frustrating because later on in the day, Evil Geniuses plays the reverse of a lot of these matchups. They play Kai'Sa and LeBlanc against PSG, and it's clear how strong those champions are on like the strong side of good matchups. Meaning, like, if you get Kai'Sa because the other team picked Ezreal, which is what PSG did to Evil Geniuses, then you are the team that has more say in how the game is going to go. And Jojo Pion has had LeBlanc banned against him in the past, so, you know, you could have justified blind picking LeBlanc. Caps is the kind of player who will punish it by playing something like Lissandra. I'm not sure what the Anivia matchup is like, but I wouldn't be shocked if Anivia was good against LeBlanc. I don't remember if that's the case or not. And then we get Vulcan on Leona. So Vulcan has been playing poorly, and a lot of the decision-making is very bad, and a lot of the times it seems like he's disconnected from the team, not in the sense where I think like he's not paying attention to the team. It's just, if you're setting up for a Baron, which is like how they basically lose this game, is Vulcan pushing out to try to get vision, Vulcan pushes out to try to get vision, gets attacked in the pixel brush, and then G2 engages on Evil Geniuses and gets like a 3-man Ornn ultimate with LeBlanc and Kai'Sa diving into the back. There's nothing spectacular about the mechanics of what G2 did in today's game overall, but the reason why those kinds of things are possible is because they have good shot calling and good positional awareness for League of Legends. So it's like if you know that you have Ornn and Kai'Sa and LeBlanc want to get on to Ezreal, you can start off the fight with just an Ornn ultimate, and then Kai'Sa can fly into the back. Like it's going to be good. You have the dive ability onto the back line. It's going to be a fractured team fight. It's just a good situation overall for G2. So again, props to G2 for drafting well. Props to Dylan Falco, very good coach. Whoever this Evil Geniuses coach is, I don't know his name. I don't know anything about him. But the Evil Geniuses have had big drafting issues for long periods of time until they figure out a meta. So the fact that they're not able to adjust to metas quickly is something that they should bring in another coach to supplement that. I'm not saying get rid of this coach, but you need to have somebody in your organization who is better at quickly identifying the meta if your players aren't doing it and your existing coaches aren't doing it. So then we get into the second phase of pick ban. We get Rise. I'm fine with him picking Rise. They were talking about how it's been nerfed a couple times. I don't really care as much about that. Your team is going to be focused on letting Danny carry the game. Evil Geniuses played out the game pretty well until they got to that one bad point in the around the Baron pit, or in the river by Baron. But these are just the reason why I'm highlighting the draft right now is because this kind of forces you into those positions. The fact that you have Ezreal and Lee Sin, you have an aggressive champion like Lee Sin. You do have the aggression out of Leona, and they were looking to make a play in the bot lane. So I think that Evil Geniuses had plans to do things in the early game that didn't really come to fruition. And then they got the counter pick for Impact with Mordekaiser, and the Mordekaiser was doing okay against the Ornn, but ended up dying to a gank, which is kind of it's not that it's unavoidable, but you know when you're constantly shoved as Mordekaiser, that kind of thing can happen. The other issue with the Ornn situation is that now it's like, yes, Ornn is going to be injecting 5,000 gold worth into his team. It's very good during a Jinx meta because you're giving Jinx another 1,000 gold basically. But it's also very good to help a mid game composition extend how powerful they are. It's like if you're a team like G2 right now, there are limitations to their draft. Theoretically, LeBlanc being a burst mage, you can play around the LeBlanc successfully if you're able to not clump up a lot and if you're able to not let caps get fed. So that's one way to do it. And then Kai'Sa has some good sustained damage, but this is the kind of meta that's perfect for her because you're not having a ton of extended team fights that are very long. I guess what I mean to say is they're decided quickly and then the rest of the fight plays out. Once that first death happens in a lot of these team fights, the fight is basically over. Just because of how you have Burst Mage, you have Wukong diving into the background, you have Kai'Sa who's basically playing like an assassin. And once you have the numbers advantage, you should be able to win those team fights because there isn't an incredible amount of sustained damage coming out of the Rise and the Ezreal because of the nerfs that have been coming into the Rise, Rise's build, and also because by opting into this kind of team composition where G2 has basically all of the momentum and all the tempo in the early and mid game, without Evil Geniuses making like great plays, which they ended up doing, the Ezreal and Rise will most likely be playing from a negative gold position. But that's fine. So that's kind of my frustration with the draft. And then there was a point in the game where I thought it was really well highlighted. It was where the game kind of started feeling like it was getting out of control in the early portion. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I kind of wanted to make the video for that one reason in particular, and then we can look at this real quick because this is basically what I was talking about. Okay, So what's going on in the game at this point? Or actually, let's go to the earlier one. Because we should also be giving EG credit for when they're making good plays. So they get the shutdown onto Caps, which was nice. Then they start moving into the jungle, and they get a kill onto Nautilus. Survives. They turn this fight around. Then this turns into the dragon fight. Yeah, and this is really a huge team fight, right? So in this situation, it's good that Evil Geniuses was looking to contest this dragon. I was afraid that they were going to give it up at first because they do that a decent amount in the early game. I was also a little frustrated that they didn't contest the Infernal Drake. I think that I get why teams kind of think it's like, oh, it's just one Drake, but there's a huge gold value associated with the Drakes that teams need to be more intentional about. So they kind of let this play out. And as this was going on, I was still pretty concerned because they didn't necessarily need to fight from this position, but they ended up being able to make something happen. So Mordekaiser gets a good TP in, and it was interesting. They pointed out that they basically just went straight for the Nautilus with the Mordekaiser ultimate, and they were just trying to get him out of the fight so the rest of the fight could go, would have less CC involved. Then, they just play out the rest of the team fight. Not really much to say here. And I guess the reason why, I don't really care about getting into the nitty-gritty of what's going on in these team fights is because so much of League of Legends is about making good decisions. This was a bad decision. Walking in disconnected from the rest of your team, not really necessary. You just made a good play. You don't need to have your two players running in blind to dive bot tower. It was a bad decision that ended up being a good thing because Danny gets a kill and sneaks out with his life, which was very borderline. I thought they were going to win the game from this position, and I do think that they should have won this game from this position. It's just that it's difficult because even with that 2,000 gold lead they have now, once Ornn hits level 14, it's basically gone, right? So you really need to have one or two more team fights that make the gold lead decisive. Not only the gold lead plus the positional advantage plus a tower advantage, that's really going to make the gold lead feel even more impactful. So now we're looking good. At this point, they're able to pick up a dragon. G2 doesn't necessarily want to fight them yet, which is it's just good decision making from G2. This part was really frustrating to watch. They were able to build up a 2,000 gold lead and kind of gave it away through towers. And then we're getting back to a Baron fight. I really do love how G2 plays around Baron. It's very smart. It's very predictable that the other team is going to be moving into these positions. They have a team composition that can take advantage of that. So right here, they're basically playing positional League of Legends. You're anticipating where the enemy team is going to be on the map. You know that you have a lot of easy corridors to have fights in. It's just a smart way to play League. Because you basically, Evil Geniuses needed to punish G2 before Ornn items came online, but also let Ezreal kind of scale. So it's kind of a disjointed team composition in general. And again, that doesn't mean that it can't win. It's just, it's not an optimal draft. And maybe an optimal draft doesn't exist, or, that's the kind of theoretical argument you want to get into. But, it's like playing the game on hard mode. I think that's been a saying I've used a lot recently. So now we're getting into the Baron situation. So the reason why this is annoying is because what are you trying to accomplish here? Like, Mordekaiser is pinging that he's going to push through bot. So you don't even have your entire team there. What are you going to accomplish by standing on your own pink ward? Like, he's walking up. Danny's not even close to him. Danny was standing in mid lane, saw Ornn, still sees Ornn. Has to waste stopwatch, has to waste their flash. Danny kind of gets caught out. Danny probably could have played that better. The better play there was to just let Vulcan die and then try to do something about the Baron afterwards. But honestly, once this happened, I just instantly thought the game was over, because now you have a 2,000 gold deficit. You're not going to get this Baron if you're Evil Geniuses. That's going to give another couple thousand gold. Then you're going to have G2 knocking down a bunch of towers. It's going to increase their gold lead to probably 6,000 or 7,000 gold. And Evil Geniuses just can't win from that position. So that was basically it. So like I said, it's not like I expect G2 to start making worse decisions. It's just when you have the better side of draft and you're making the right decisions, it's an easier game to play. And G2 has been doing a very good job. They've been doing everything they can do to win games. I think that what happens is, if you're not watching these games, you might think to yourself, oh, this is all just, mechanically outplaying other players. Broken Blade's playing Ornn. I know that Broken Blade can play other champions, but Broken Blade is not some kind of mechanical masterpiece of an Ornn game that changes everything. He ulted Ezreal and Leona intentionally. Great. Also hits Ryze because Ryze was there. So then it seems even better. Caps W's over the wall because he knows at least 2 people from Evil Geniuses are there. He basically blows up the entire team. And then, Kai'Sa does like 5 damage and gets a kill, so everybody's happy that Flock gets more kills. It's just, we have to be... It's just, like, watching the games makes me think it's funny, because I know people want this to mean something that it doesn't mean. So, yeah, that happens. It's just crazy how, like, you can support a team for so long, and then the backlash from people, like, just being insane on the internet makes it seem like you're anti G2. I'm not anti G2. I just don't think G2 is as good as you do. If they end up winning MSI, then great. I'll bet against them all summer split. Like, that's just how betting kind of works. You can't go with the hype. Like, you can, but you're not going to have value on it. So, is G2 the best team in the world? I don't think so. Some of you apparently think so. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. That's all I've got for you today. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.